I think that they initially proposed a much longer thing. It was supposed to be something like 5 hours.
Right.
And then it got slashed down to 100 minutes. It was supposed to be a miniseries about a lot of things. And then as they were filming it, he started to hone in on, this obsession.
There's no better vehicle for art than television, I always say.
I actually thought the documentary did a decent job. I don't like the conclusion of the documentary. I thought they kind of just, the very end. But
the whole thing was terrible.
The whole thing? No, why?
Awful. It had a very clear intention, and then it just barreled towards that intention without really any sense of its own culpability or anything.
Yeah, I think that was a product of the editing and the process of at HBO,
right.
In terms of switching it from this longer format.
I still go to why is it necessary for us to indulge in this, for the amusement of the masses, right? We're sort of, it's why do we have to tell, why is it that we have to be defined by this story continually? And why is it somebody like Peter, who has legitimately contributed to one of the most influential technologies in the world in a way where he's a top 10 contributor to Bitcoin.
For sure.
Yeah. He can't be appreciated on those grounds. He has to be turned into some sort of carnival animal, for HBO.
All he wanted to do was show his new friend the urban spelunking. Look at these stalagmites.
Maybe he just wanted to chat about, the global money, right? Basically remaking the global money. I do love the confrontation scene was great, but I don't know. Again, it's is this all we have, right? This at this point with the Bitcoin documentaries,
it's certainly topical, right? It's a big mystery. I think it is high drama and entertainment.
You're not looking at it on a high enough level. So let's just think about Netflix and Amazon and all that stuff, right? So they're investing. You're a Netflix guy. You're investing $500 million a year into British Victorian programming, right? So you're saying okay, we're gonna get 500 hours of women in Britain. Yeah. Deciding their love life. That's what we're investing in. And then the Bitcoin people, it's I know you get 1 hour and you have to sacrifice someone in your community has to be blamed and accused of this thing where they could be murdered. That's the trade-off. So it's on one hand, it's you have, okay, we're going to invest in all this. That's seriously, they're funding that much content.
Yeah.
Right? They are funding, we got an hour. It's you got an hour. They're funding that much content. They're funding, how many hours of children's programming about any arcane subject, right? But we're worth 1 hour of their time.
Yeah.
And we have to make a blood sacrifice. We have to sacrifice somebody.
Yeah.
For their amusement.
Get out there, Peter.
No, but that's seriously, we're supposed to be in the golden age of content, right? There's more content.
Well, what would you rather see? Is it just the Taproot wizards getting in pools, or what would be a better use of HBO's time?
I think the Bitcoin story is legitimately very fascinating, and I think you could do a dramatized version of that very easily.
So that's where I was coming from. Look, they had Amir on, they had a lot of the characters on. I think that they actually did a decent job.
But they didn't really do anything with Amir. Amir is worth a 10-episode series on Amir, because this was really struck me.
We had 100 minutes. Yeah. That's all we get.
I was in Lugano. And I sat next to this guy. I'd never met him before. I'd never met this person before.
Who, Amir?
I can't even remember. It was I actually don't remember his name, but we promised to stay in contact because during the conversation, I was like, man, this is wild.
Well, that's going to be hard.
I never met him. He works at some Bitcoin exchange thing, whatever, some European thing. And I sat down and he's like, oh, you're talking about Amir. And I was like, Amir. And we both knew what we were talking about. Instantaneously, I knew what he knew that I was talking about, that we had seen this man's life story. And Amir's story is insane. It's a crazy story. I mean, it's more interesting than most movies are less interesting than Amir's life, where it's why is that on its own, that can't be amusing to HBO. HBO can only find amusement in this one thing, right? I just think it's very cynical.
It is the most normcore thing to go after by far. That Ross Ulbricht, those are the two, whether we like it or not, I do think that Ross Ulbricht and the Silk Road and who was Satoshi.
That's another great story.
It is a great story.
You can do a whole series. You can do a whole series on Silk Road.
He's coming home.
That is wild. Yeah.